Hi all of you wonderful scuba divers out there, welcome to the Scuba Diving Magazine podcast, where I break down the latest scuba diving news and just things that have piqued my interest over the previous week. This week saw news from a couple training fatality lawsuits and a bit of a exoneration for the specialist search divers who, after searching the river, said that there was no chance that a missing person was in said river that they searched, only for the body to be found a few weeks later. A lot of people thought that was a bit embarrassing, but there is a lot more to that story that I'm going to go into. So I'm going to start this week talking about a post on social media, which was on yesterday. That was the 22nd. And the buddy accused of criminal negligence leading to the death of Christine Gauci in January 2020 has announced that the sentence has been overturned on appeal. So this is marvelous news. This was over in Malta, and the appeal judgments, you can download it online. It's in Maltese, I think is the name of the language. I think I've seen a Google translated version, and from what I can tell, Maltese it's not the easiest to just directly translate, especially judicial language. So it's not perfect, but you get the gist. And a quick read of the appeal judgment reveals that while the Court of Appeal did not agree with some of the issues raised in the appeal on behalf of Castillo, the court agreed that the fact that the divers were diving as a buddy team did not mean that they were responsible for the other. For example, a case of an instructor with the victim, but instead that they were just diving together as they had done before. The court also agreed with the reasoning that the diving expert's part of his report, where he gave a legal opinion that Castillo was negligent, should be discarded, as the legal expert's opinion of there not being grounds for prosecution should have prevailed. And it was all due to I think Castillo was an instructor, and he was diving with a friend. They were both on rebreathers, and the friend got into trouble a couple of times, and it got to the stage where I believe, I could be wrong, it's been a while since I looked at the actual full information of the case. She basically ended up on the surface and drowned. So then the court basically convicted Castillo, said that he was fully responsible and all that. But luckily now that it's gone to appeals, it's basically said no. Actually, it's repealed it. The court reconsidered that Castillo did actually assist the victim multiple times during the dive. It wasn't just a one incident. These multiple things happened leading up to it, and also considered the diving equipment expert's opinion that Castillo could do little to assist the victim after the uncontrolled ascent, and that assisting immediately would have placed his own life at risk. Therefore, the court decided that Castillo did not act in a negligent manner. And that's a tricky thing, because a lot of these court cases, they don't always understand the little intricacies of scuba diving, in that you can't yourself just bolt up to the surface to help someone, because then you're going to have two victims on the surface. So it's quite good news, and you can see it in all of the comments of the Facebook post that Castillo put up. And it started off with just sentence overturned, and then the later post went on to say, after years of waiting and months of being wrongfully accused for the death of my friend, today's judgment was a huge weight off my shoulders. The events in November were difficult to come to terms with, and as a result, I had almost completely lost my passion for diving. I want to thank the diving community for many reasons. Firstly, for sticking by me and their endless support throughout this trial, but also for reminding me of my love for this sport. And he goes on to thank many others. So this is a good turnout for this case, because it would set an awkward precedent for instructors and just dive buddies in general, in that, yeah, if something happens to your buddy, even if it's not directly your fault, then you could be at fault legally for their outcome. So it is quite nice to see that this court case has been overturned, in my opinion. The next one is another training fatality, and this is a prominent US diving lawyer is pushing for the reopening of what he says was a botched criminal investigation into the death of 18-year-old Linnea Mills in Montana Mountain Lake in November 2020. So the announcement follows the news that the civil lawsuit brought against a local dive center, its owners, an instructor, and the training agency. And I believe the person who sold her the dry suit in connection with the fatality has now been settled by all parties out of court on undisclosed terms. And this was, from what I remember of the incident, this 18-year-old girl, Linnea Mills, she wanted to. I think she was doing like a dry suit speciality to dive in colder waters, and she ended up buying, or effectively using, a dry suit that didn't have like inflate and deflate valves. It was just a surface dry suit, and she just didn't know the difference, didn't know that you specifically needed she just found a dry suit like either online or whatever, and she just bought it. And then the instructor basically took her on a dive in this surface dry suit. So there's no way that she can adjust her buoyancy or the squeeze. And I think she was overweighted heavily as well, and just awful situation. And now that it's gone to court, it seems to have been settled. The lawyer had been part of the team acting on behalf of the plaintiffs with regard to Paddy, which had been accused of negligence in its oversight of a member business. I don't think you can go after the training agency specifically, because just all of the red flags and the things that they did wrong on that dive, they are by no means to Paddy standards. So I don't think you can go after Paddy in this case. It was a $12 million civil suit that was filed in May 21 by Mills's parents, Scott and Lisa, dive trainee Bob Gentry and his wife Shannon, and a minor only named as EG, who were also on the training dive, and another student called Joel Wilson. The action was brought against Paddy Worldwide and its subsidiary Paddy Americas, Gulf Dive of Missoula, its owners David and Janine, instructor Deborah Snow and Heidi Hook, who previously sold Mills her used dry suit but without the inflator hose. Snow was expelled from Paddy on the 19th of January this year, around the time of the final settlement. The Olsons dissolved Gull Dive in 2022, and volunteer safety diver Seth Liston, who was originally cited, was later dropped from the lawsuit. So Mills was a Paddy open water diver from Missoula, had been new to cold water diving when she undertook an advanced open water course in Lake McDonald in Glacier National Park. She had never used a dry suit before, but according to the lawsuit, bought Hook's second-hand garments on Gull Dive's recommendations. So that's a red flag that they just said, oh yeah, no. They should have been able to notice that it was a surface dry suit and not a scuba diving dry suit. The instructors failed to check her equipment before leaving for the lake, so were unaware that she had no means of controlling suit inflation. She also had a regulator that was unsuitable for cold water use. So this is just bad planning altogether. I always remember preparing for open water sessions with students, and I'd be going through everybody's equipment just to make sure that we had absolutely everything. And then even then, I'd be packing spare bits of equipment, because just things happen. So it's so important as an instructor that you check everyone's dive equipment. Snow told Mills to use her BCD for buoyancy control, which, yeah, okay, but you do still need to adjust for squeeze of a dry suit. And she was weighted with 20 kilograms of lead in her dry suit and BCD pocket. 20 kilos is a lot of lead. That's just a bonkers amount. No dive briefing was given for or buddies assigned, apparently. Failing to see how much her suit was already squeezed in the first 5 minutes of the dive at 5 meters, the instructors took her with students Gentry and EG down to 18 meters. That would have been tough for her. The first 10 meters, you're getting that most amount of squeeze where you do need to inflate your suit a bit. Gentry's GoPro footage later showed Mills on the ledge struggling to breathe but unable to ascend or attract Snow's attention. She signalled for Gentry to help before overbalancing and sinking rapidly over the ledge. He caught her at 26 meters and later reported that she was showing signs of being crushed by her suit, but he could not locate her weights to dump them. She then dropped her second stage. Gentry was forced to leave her at 32 meters and make a rapid ascent, where he found that there was no surface cover. Mills was later found at 39 meters by Snow and Liston and recovered, but too late to save her life. Paddy had argued that the Gull Dive Centre and its staff were neither its agents nor employees, which is true, just because they train using a certain training agency doesn't mean that they're employed by Paddy or SSI or any training agency. That's not how it works. And that because Mills had signed a disclaimer, it could not be held responsible for the teenager's death. Yeah, that was my assessment as well. Paddy basically set out all of the requirements and this is how you should teach this course. And they were clearly so far outside of those regulations and requirements that they effectively weren't teaching a Paddy course anymore. But last July, a judge overruled this denial of responsibility, stating that Paddy exerted control through its membership agreement over Gold Dive and its instructors, who were contractually obliged to follow its standards and instructions. Well, yeah, that's it, but they clearly weren't. The judge had also ruled that an instructor could be an ostensible agent of Paddy if the student believed that instructor to represent the agency because of its claim. She had said that it would be for a jury to determine to what extent Paddy could be held responsible for Mills's death at trial. So that I find kind of hard to believe because, but Paddy specifically said, no, you have to have a proper dry suit and you have to do it this particular way. I don't think that if it had gone to jury, it shouldn't have been Paddy's fault. It's more the instructors themselves. When federal investigators submitted a report to the incident to the assistant U.S. attorney in Montana in 2021, she decided against bringing a criminal prosecution. Quoted, "While Snow was likely at fault to some extent for Mills's death, we cannot prove beyond reasonable doubt that she was criminally culpable. Now that the civil suit has been settled, however, Concannon is set to challenge the process those investigators had used to build their case and to pursue the bringing of criminal charges. The trial lawyer, who claims not to have lost a trial since 1995, has been a scuba diver since he was 14. He's also led numerous deep water expeditions, including 5 to the Titanic, not on scuba, I presume, one of which he led and succeeded in finding and recovering the Apollo F-1 lunar rocket engines from 1969, for which he received an Explorers Club citation. Because Gull Dive had not been licensed to operate commercially in Glacier National Park, the initial investigation was undertaken by park agents. Concannon said that they had done well to consult a wide range of diving specialists. However, the National Park Service Investigation Services Bureau quickly took over the case, and according to Concannon, it served those links to experts to the extent of failing to involve even the NPS's own dive safety officer, normally charged with investigating diving fatalities, its dive team or dive control board. So yeah, even after the case has been settled, chances are it's going to be like stripped apart and gone for criminal like proceedings. So we'll watch this space. But yeah, if you want to go diving with dry suits, they are perfectly safe. I've dived countless dives in a dry suit, and it's just a matter of, yeah, you do need to know how to use them. You do have to go through the proper course to learn how to use them properly. And yeah, you can't just buy any dry suit that you find on the internet. It has to be specifically for scuba diving, so that you can inflate and deflate and control your gas volume and the squeeze on the inside. But yeah, terrible news. And yeah, the legal system just boggles me at times on how they can make decisions about certain things. On to some lighter news. There's it's about $10 million innovation program to protect coral from crown of thorns starfish. So they're planning to use high-tech robots, genetics, pheromones channeled out to outsmart crown of thorns starfish. Robotics, genetics, environmental DNA, pheromones, and natural predators are among the clever solutions that scientists are aiming to fast track in a $9.8 million innovation program to try and basically eradicate the coral-eating crown of thorns starfish on the Great Barrier Reef. So the mission to protect the reef's coral from predatory starfish is receiving a boost from 21 new products as part of the Crown of Thorns Starfish Control Innovation Program. So that would be the CSCIP, the CSCIP. And in this world-leading program, the Great Barrier Reef Foundation is partnering with the Australian Institute of Marine Science, James Cook University and the University of Queensland to develop new generation tools that will enhance our capability to predict, detect and respond to deadly crown of thorns starfish outbreaks at large scale across the Great Barrier Reef. So with the current crown of thorns starfish outbreak still active in many areas of the reef, the managing director of the Great Barrier Reef Foundation, Anna Marsden, said outbreaks are a major threat to the health of our irreplaceable Great Barrier Reef and the thousands of species of marine life that call it home. It is critical that we do everything we can to help build the reef's resilience and ensure our precious corals have every chance to survive. Controlling the crown of thorns starfish outbreaks is one of the most effective actions we can take to directly protect corals and build the reef's resilience in the face of climate change. The $9.8 million Control Innovation Program brings together over 90 of the best and brightest minds from Australia's leading science institutes to uncover the next level intelligence and tools we need to predict where and when crown of thorns starfish outbreaks will occur, find them more efficiently, and respond quickly to counter potential outbreaks before they can take a hold of our corals. And yeah, looking at some of these, they've got these robots. So previously divers would have to manually go down and scan the reef looking for these crown of thorns and then like injecting them. I think it used to be just with vinegar to kill them off. But now they're really investing in all this new technology that can either do it automatically, predict where they're going to be to help them, because they are just devastating, these crown of thorns starfish, and they're just constantly just spreading, reproducing, and eating and decimating all this coral, when coral already has a pretty hard life as it is. So yeah, it is nice to see that there's some proper like investment in new technology to help kill them off. And finally, one of the specialist underwater search teams in the Nicola Bulley missing persons case, Peter Faulding, has been criticised because his private dive team undertook a completely free of charge 3-day search of the River Weir for the missing woman 2 weeks ago, and he's had to defend its failure to make a breakthrough now that her body has been found close to where she was last seen. So Lancashire police had continued to insist throughout the 3-week operation that the 45-year-old mortgage advisor had probably fallen into the water, because it was most likely what had happened. She'd been walking the dogs and her phone was found on a bench just a few feet away from a river. Although its own divers and those from Falding's Dorking-based specialist group International SGI had found no evidence of her in the water, her body was eventually spotted by passers-by and recovered on the 19th of February. The SGI underwater search team was tasked with searching the river upstream of the weir in the non-tidal part of the river, past the bench where Nicola's phone was found, and a mile upstream past this point, said Falding, who made his statement before the body had been formally identified. For 3 days, using high-frequency side-scan sonar, we thoroughly searched the riverbed and can categorically confirm that Nicola was not lying on the riverbed on the days that we searched. He said that his team had searched the stretch of the river where the body was found for 4 hours on the first day, concentrating further upstream after that. The police underwater search teams and land search teams were searching for 3 full weeks and were also unable to find Nicola. Falding pointing out that the body had been found not in the river but in the reeds on the bank, which was not part of their remit, as a side-scan sonar does not penetrate reeds above or below the water. A riverbank and wade search would be the only way to search this area, and we were not involved or tasked with that search. Referring to unfair criticism of himself and his team, Falding insisted that his previous promise that he would find Bully if she was still in the river still stood. I did not volunteer my services, my equipment, or my team for any limelight or publicity, he said. I simply wanted to lend extra resources to help a family in despair, and this was supported by Lancashire Police. However, there has been unprecedented media and public interest in this case, and at every turn I was asked for an update on my own search, which I provided with only best intentions. Support for my assistance and my actions have been overwhelmingly positive, although I am aware that some negativity has been directed towards myself and my team. Unfortunately, there are few police underwater search teams left. SGI is the recognised underwater search team for Essex, Surrey, Sussex, Kent, Hampshire and Thames Valley Police, who have worked closely alongside for many years. So, yeah, basically, because they searched the river that they were tasked with searching and they found no evidence of her, then they said categorically, no, she's not there. We would have seen her if she was underwater in the river. But then because she was found later on, but not actually in the river, she was in the reeds off on the banks. So then, of course, they had some criticism. Oh, you said that she wasn't in the river. It's like, well, technically, no, she wasn't where we were tasked with searching, and our side-scan sonar wouldn't have been able to pick her up where she was eventually located anyway. So while it is good news that they have finally found her body, it's important not to jump on the search teams that didn't manage to find her. They of course were trying their hardest, and yeah, if you're looking straight down at the riverbed, then and no, she's off to one side, then no, you can't really blame them. But onto something a little bit nicer. As far as new equipment, I haven't seen anything overly interesting. The big one this week was the Apex DSX launch. They had a big marketing plan for this week for their DSX dive computer. Seems to have gone fairly well. My video has a decent amount of views and a decent response. Yeah, it's most people are obviously comparing it against Shearwater, Perdix, and Petrol, which makes sense. They're large screen, color screen, technical dive computers, and everyone's asking, oh, which is best? And it's really tricky to quantify which is better. They're very, very similar. The main takeaways are going to be that the DSX has that GPS, which the Shearwaters don't have. It also has the side mount modes, which I don't think Shearwaters have. You can still connect to multiple transmitters, but I don't think I know they do on their their CCR modes. You can have your diluent and your O2 on the same screen. I'm not sure about side mount. It also has that oxygen analyzer that you can directly input oxygen readings into if you're diving nitrox, but it doesn't have trimix, so then you need a trimix or a helium analyzer anyway. And it's got that rechargeable battery, which is a double-edged sword. Some people love rechargeable batteries. They're very convenient. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of rechargeable batteries just because of their life. I mean, if you think about your smartphone, how long the battery lasts compared to when you first bought it. And now it's your dive computer. So I don't know. You might be able to swap over the rechargeable battery. That would be quite interesting, just to prolong its life. Whereas with a shearwater, you just use another AA battery. But yeah, I mean, technically, I suppose the DSX is better because it does have those extra features. It really depends on what you define as better. I mean, the petrol has the better screen. It's got that AMOLED screen, so it's a better screen. But realistically, on a dive computer, most people probably wouldn't notice the real difference or appreciate that there's that much of a difference. The petrol screen is a little bit bigger compared to the DSX and the Perdix. It's a very solid dive computer, but it's really aimed at the high, like tier 1, like technical divers. It's not aimed at like average Joe who's just going on a week-long liveaboard in the Red Sea or something like once a year. It's more for someone who really needs a powerful machine on their wrist to do some serious deep diving or like extended diving. I think I also saw somewhere in someone saw on like a Korean post that there's a new version of the Halcyon torch. So there's like a pro version of I think it's called the Flare Pro or something. I think that's about it as far as new equipment that I've seen. As far as videos, this week I've been working on a buyer's guide for fins. Just if you're in the market for buying a new pair of fins, just little things to at least be aware of, and the real basics of like how big it should be, how it should like feel on your foot, difference between like full foot and open heel, just for like the real foundations. Just if you're just starting out and you want to buy a pair of fins, then just sort of have a quick watch of that, and you're a bit more savvy when you're walking into the dive center asking for a pair of fins. Our smart questions this week, we were answering questions about rethreading webbing on a backplate and harness system. And it's definitely doable. It's something that I do quite frequently. I think this particular question was because they had a stainless steel backplate, but they were going traveling, so they wanted an aluminium backplate. Is it easy to just swap it over? And I think they were more asking about, is there anything that I need to be aware of when swapping them over? And it's mainly just staying organized, because it's very easy to rethread a BCD harness, and because on a single 2-inch webbing system, a very light DIR system, it's very easy. You just have that single piece of webbing, and then all of the hardware, it just all has to go on in a certain order, and then it's about which way the webbing is like folded, because especially on the shoulder straps, when it gets down to the waist, if it's twisted the wrong direction, it can like twist on like around your waist, which can be a bit uncomfortable. So otherwise the webbing does you a real favor, because it has memory. Whenever you put, or wherever you put D-rings or thread it through something, it's like embedded into the webbing harness, so you can see exactly where it was. Otherwise, just use a piece of chalk I find is quite useful, just to mark certain points on the harness before you take it off, so that then you know, oh, okay, when I'm rethreading it, that's where the chalk should be. Next one was on Saturday. We had the video dealing with current. That was someone who, by the sounds of it, they'd gotten into trouble with some current, and they asked us if we could do a video on like the awareness of different currents and how to deal with them. So yeah, made that, and yeah, it is important that people do be able to see the signs of current before they're caught up in it. And the main one is like either looking at the snow, you know, the little like bits of stuff hanging in the water, and if you can see that moving ahead of you, then you know that there's water movement up ahead, so do be careful of that. The little amphiases as well. I remember on one dive, and where were we? I think we must have been on the Straits of Tiran, and they're kind of these. We were diving on a pinnacle, and we were in the one side of the pinnacle that had no current, and we basically did a zigzag kind of dive, and you'd swim a certain direction, and then as you could see the little amphiases ahead of you start to hunker down, you know, those little like red or purple or yellow, like lots of little fish. And when they're out in the water, just milling around, just feeding, then there's very little water movement there. But if they're hunkered down and they're all really tightly spaced inside of the coral, then, you know, the chances are there's going to be a lot of current there, or a predator. So you can see from a great distance if there's any kind of water movement, so you'd start to turn around before you reach that spot. And yeah, they're really helpful. Otherwise, if you're caught in current, the usual thing is don't fight against it, because you will lose, and you're just going to end up in the same place, but you're going to be even more tired when you get there. So try and swim perpendicular, so sideways to it. And if it's like an up or a down current, try and swim diagonally. So you're kind of swimming against it, but you're swimming away from it. But yeah, watch the video, and there's more information on that. Otherwise, the next Ask Mask question was on, is there a BCD out there that monitors your buoyancy? This diver, I think they wanted basically a BCD that monitored how much gas you put in and purge out of a BCD, which doesn't really exist. I mean, we've got like a velo system now, which I haven't tried, but I've seen divers on it, which uses a different method. I think it's a bit more of like the submarine method, how a submarine controls its buoyancy, compared to the BCD where you're just adding gas into a sealed bag. So that you can kind of do that, but to actually monitor like how much gas you're putting in to a BCD, you'd have to have a separate cylinder, or at least a separate a separate cylinder altogether, and like a wireless air transmitter, or even just a gauge on it, and only have that set up with that low pressure inflator hose that you inflate your BCD on. That's kind of all you can get, or the best thing that I could think of to like monitor your buoyancy. We don't really have that. I think they have experimented with kind of things like that before, like BCDs that can like automatically adjust your buoyancy, but I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of anything that's like automatic that can open and close that valve. And that's why the old BCDs with a suicide bottle are named suicide bottles, because yeah, if you cranked that valve open accidentally underwater, you are gonna go to the surface regardless. So we don't tend to see too many of them anymore. I get the logic behind them. You have a dedicated air source just so that you can maintain positive buoyancy even with an empty main cylinder. But Struth, no, you hear horror stories of someone like diving in a shipwreck, and then it like brushes the valve, opens up the valve, and now they're stuck to the ceiling. So no, not a huge fan of that. But I think it's mainly down to just self-awareness, just how much gas you put in your BCD. I don't think there is a BCD out there at the moment that does monitor your buoyancy like that. But yeah, maybe a velo system is something worth looking into. And yeah, that was about it. Pretty quiet week. Yeah, mainly focused on the Apex, the DSX. That took up a fair amount of my time, and just navigating it and getting used to it so that I can produce a video for you wonderful people. And yeah, it's a good solid dive computer, but yeah, only if you're like a real like uber tech diver are you really going to appreciate all of its like sort of idiosyncrasies and its features and stuff. Otherwise, yeah, I'm going to continue on with what I was doing. I'm doing some more Ask Mark questions. It's been a while since I've edited and uploaded any. I think I had a big like backlog of stuff that I just uploaded a whole bunch of them a while back, and I just haven't got back to them. But yeah, I will continue on with those. Otherwise, yeah, thank you for listening, everybody, and yeah, safe diving.